Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. We are joined by two very special guests today. We have Sheriff Bill Waybourn from Tarrant County.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for being here. And Remi Adeleke.
Yes, ma'am.
You are a jack of all trades. So you're a former Navy SEAL, you're an actor. Yeah. You just do a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
Just make us all jealous over here. And then we've got Jason Howerton, Director of Social Media Engagement, social media guru.
Last and least among this table, I would say.
Well, we just already know you here.
Yeah.
We had to introduce our special guest
We're
first.
talking about a seal and a sheriff. Okay.
It's true.
It is what it is. It is what it is. I'm aware.
What's your top story today, Jason?
So I want to talk about, you might have recalled the push to censor people on Facebook. That I want to talk about how that is a coordinated effort that has now moved to YouTube. And I think it's a little more involved than we think.
Okay. All right, Sheriff.
I want to talk about being very optimistic with a little bit of cynicism involved with the plan with Mexico now on what we got and how we're dealing with the border and how they're dealing with their borders.
I'm so glad this is your story because I can't wait to hear your take on that. And Remi.
I'd like to talk about an upcoming event. I'm going to be doing speaking at Rikers Island Jail to the inmates who are graduating with their high school diploma, which I think is a big deal. Yeah.
That is a great.
That is. I can't wait to get into that also. First, we want to thank our sponsor, iTarget Pro. So I checked with these gentlemen here sitting at the table who obviously are very well versed in shooting a gun. Yeah. And I asked them beforehand, have you heard of iTarget Pro? And they both said no. And I said, oh, I can't wait to talk to you about iTarget Pro. So what they do at iTarget Pro, they've got it's a laser bullet. It's just a laser bullet. That's the easiest way to explain it. It's a laser bullet that you put into your gun so that you can dry fire. So it's not actually coming out and it stays in it. And you can dry fire over and over and over again. And you've got an app that you can put on your phone. And if you guys can see over there, they brought it to the studio and we all used it. But
can I use this as like a moment to like be selfish and try to get better at shooting and ask these experts how in like for especially people who want to carry and maybe be in a situation where you might need to be, have it be really well versed on drawing, firing. How important in training, like, do experts do a lot of dry firing to make sure you're ready for that?
I do a lot of dry firing and I do a lot of drawing from the holster. And so I'm very interested in this product.
Yeah, absolutely. In the teams, I mean, you don't start shooting on the range until you dry fire for at least 2 days.
A lot of clicks.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of, it's the best way to kind of get used to the mechanisms and trigger pull and get more accurate. So
well, there you go.
Yeah.
I guess I need one.
So you can download the app on your phone and keep track of where you're shooting, where you're hitting, keep track of how you're doing. And right now, if you go to itargetpro.com, you can get 10% off plus free shipping with promo code NEWS. So go to itargetpro.com. I don't know what their shipping situation looks like, but Father's Day is coming up. It's around the corner. If you can get that expedited shipping, that's a really good Father's Day present. Yeah. Promo code NEWS. Hello, Sheriff's family. itargetpro.com. All right, Jason.
So obviously everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, but most people have heard about what happened with Steven Crowder over the last week. His YouTube page got demonetized and basically just came under assault for some jokes that he told, some obviously edgy jokes that he told. And as this has kind of materialized, I've started to notice what's going on in the media and just in kind of that left-leaning circle.
Well, can I interrupt you really quickly?
Sure.
So I just want to clarify. He was demonetized on YouTube not for breaking policy.
Correct.
They specifically said he didn't actually break.
They called it borderline.
The terms. Yes, they said it was borderline, and it hurt people's feelings. So
it hurt people's feelings.
We did it anyway.
And some powerful people made a lot of noise, right? Yeah. That's what happened, and so he was demonetized. And I just want to be clear about something because as I've been defending Crowder, I've gotten a lot of people on Twitter come at me and accuse me of being a homophobe and like defending hate speech and this and that. Like defending somebody's right to say something or somebody's right to joke, or like with me in comedy, I feel like there should be no restrictions on comedy, even if it's not funny or if it's offensive. defending somebody's right to say something is not the same as endorsing it. It's not the same as it's like I don't have to like I think Crowder's funny. I think he's great. Is his Vox bit my favorite bit? No, but that doesn't matter. Like
people have the right to be jerks in this country.
It doesn't matter. Like that's not the point of what I'm saying. But anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way because there seems to be a lot of confusion about that. Like I defend Bill Maher to be super offensive too. It's like it's a different kind of thing. But so what I'm seeing happening though, the New York Times had a piece today where they outlined this gentleman and his journey into the far right of YouTube is what they call it. And with this piece, as you can see, the making of a YouTube radical is what they call it. And in this piece, they kind of conflate a lot of the controversial conservative and you know the Alex Joneses of the world, the conspiracy. They kind of lump them all into this one category. And kind of what I'm seeing play out is this push to do that, to put all like the Steven Crowders of the world, Alex Jones, this whole mix of
Ben Shapiro even
Ben
sometimes.
Shapiro into this one pot. And now the push now from the New York Times, from Vox, from the Washington Post is like these voices are dangerous, and something needs to be done because they're radicalizing young men. I think they said specifically white men. Right? This is the narrative that's being drawn. So my fear, as I'm just watching this march get louder and louder, is that it doesn't stop with demonetizing Crowder. Right? We know that there are people who want him deplatformed for quote unquote hate speech or whatever it is. I don't think this is something that just goes away. We saw what happened with with Facebook, Alex Jones. That was kind of pushed by CNN and Oliver Darcy, who I'm familiar with and used to do a lot of things together. But that push came and it was relentless until he was removed from the platform. Some of the other people who do conspiracy theories were removed from the platform. So I kind of feel like what I'm seeing is a more concerted effort disguised as journalism, like this piece that we saw from the New York Times, to say this is danger, hate speech. What do we do? How do we get them off? Do they need to be off the platform? And a lot of times what happens when the media pushes this, that's the pressure that gets the YouTubes, the Facebooks to actually act and start doing stuff like, hey, sorry, Crowder, I know you didn't break any rules, but we're going to do this anyway because we have to. And so I just want to be really careful and watch this play out because obviously this is our livelihoods, being on social media and being right-leaning, a right-leaning network. I'm very concerned, and I don't think that this ends with Crowder being demonetized. I think we're going to just see this kind of creep and creep and creep. Some more people getting deplatformed and really non-personed for having opinions that don't really go about. And if you read this article, I'll make this last point. If you read this article, a lot of it is based on the fact that conservative content seems to do better on YouTube than non-conservative content. And this is how they explain it. A few progressive YouTube channels flourished from 2012 to 2016, but they were dwarfed by creators on the right who had developed an intuitive feel for the way YouTube's platform worked and were able to tap into an emerging wave of right-wing populism. So basically what they're trying to say is that the reason why stuff on YouTube does better is not that conservatives are better at messaging or have better content or just resonate more with America at large. It's that they're so extreme that the algorithm is rewarding them for being radicals, right? That's what they're saying, is that the people are getting to them because of the way the algorithm goes. The more outraged you are, the more your videos get viewed, which I don't think is the case. I think good content is good content. Of course, you're gonna have extremists on both sides who are mixed into that. Right. But that's kind of the push. Instead, I think the reality is that progressives suck at content. It's just how I feel because
they don't think anything is funny.
They don't think anything is funny.
They're offended by everything.
Can't joke about anything. Everything's offensive, and it's boring, lame content. And that's why they don't do well on YouTube. They don't do well on Facebook. They do well on CNN and MSNBC because people are forced to watch. That's the difference, I think. And so the strategy seems to be we're losing on the internet. So how do we take these voices away so that we're the only one?
Yeah.
It's very dangerous when you say that I'm going to decide whose speech is really First Amendment speech and who we're going to leave alone. That's a lot more serious. And these people that are judging your heart on that you're a whatever, I think those people are absolutely more dangerous than somebody who says something, even if it's something I horribly disagree with. I know where they're at.
Yeah.
I know where they stand.
And you have to remember, we have the First Amendment, so that protects us to an extent, but the public forum has largely become social media.
Right.
So it's this really weird conversation that we're having now where the First Amendment stops the left from really, criminalizing hate speech. But the town square is now YouTube. The town square is now Facebook. It's Twitter.
That's right.
So if they're able to censor there, that's still just as dire, I think, as
so, too.
something like repealing the First Amendment, because it really is clampering down on Americans' First Amendment rights, I think.
I agree.
Remi, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I truly believe that there needs to be a standard, and that standard needs to be upheld across the board. I've always, since I was a young kid, I've always hated the concept of favoritism and how, one rule applies to one group, but another rule doesn't apply to another group. And so, I agree there needs to be a standard across the board, and it needs to be upheld regardless of what side you're on, and I don't know.
Well, then we don't have this
Fair side.
whataboutism all the
Right.
time, because there, of course, you could find somebody on the left who made offensive jokes that you could then argue should be banned, and it might just be that people on the right don't really want to do that, so it doesn't happen. But it seems to always tilt one way.
It's not even just that so much as just think of what all the negative repercussions will be in society because we just can't tolerate another point of view entirely, right? Like it's not even, let's pretend that Crowder didn't say all of those hateful jokes or whatever, which they're jokes, he's a comedian, I would say get over it. But if you think that it's hateful, that's fine. The fact that you can't just allow other people to exist.
Criticize it,
Right.
if you want to.
Right.
Disagree with it?
Disagree with it.
Yeah, but the fact that you have to say, I can't tolerate this because I don't agree with it, what does that say about us as a society, Sheriff?
Well, what that says is, one, is that they lack tolerance that they want us to have for them. It is those people who often share no mercy or grace often needs it. And what, they got to realize that when they take away that freedom, that they're taking it away from them at a different juncture. It may not be today, but it will be later. And, as our forefathers, and I know that this is different than First Amendment because somebody belongs to Facebook and YouTube and all that, but it's still the exercise of speech that people, if they are not tolerant of it, they can choose not to listen to it. That's another choice. But if they're not tolerant of it, if it's not something like, fire in the theater, then they need to relax and walk away from it, criticize, disagree.
As a dad, I think about my son and how I want him, if he hears an opinion that he disagrees with or that offends him deeply, I want him to handle it like an adult. I don't want him to feel empowered to kick and scream and yell at the other person or call him an ism. I want him to be able to say, you know what, you're wrong, but I respect that. And that, I feel like, is what our society has kind of lost track of.
I think you're right.
And parents not really instilling that in their mind, that you're not always going to feel like you're safe all the time. That's a life skill that I think our kids are losing, and that scares me. So as a dad, I'm like really focused on that.
I think that's a great focus.
Amen. All right, back in a minute.
I think it's the longest I ever went. Just because this is one of those things, man, that just gets me.
Before we get back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, Cruise Through History. So if you have not yet marked your calendars, you need to for next spring, 2020, I believe it is in March. There is an amazing cruise taking place. They're going to go all around the Eastern Mediterranean. You're going to hit Venice. You're going to hit Jerusalem. You're going to hit Croatia. You're going to hit Greece. Think about it for a second. How many artifacts and how much history is involved in all of those different places. That is just like the roots of Western civilization are right there, and you're going to be visiting all of these different places. And if that wasn't enough, you're also going to be joined by Mr. Glenn Beck, Stu Burgier, Bill O'Reilly, Rabbi Lappin, and David Barton. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but these are the history buffs that you want to be surrounded with when you go to these places. They will tell you so much more than you ever thought could be possible to be known.
Total nerds.
Total nerds. But it's going to be an amazing, amazing time. Bring your kids, bring your grandkids. You can go to comesailaway.com to check out. They have different package information. Check out the details there. Pick your package, book it, mark your calendar, spring 2020. Go to comesailaway.com to learn more.
Cool.
All right, Sheriff, let's talk about what's going on with Trump and the tariffs and Mexico.
One, I think the president made a great deal, and if they're really deploying, it's so exciting that they're deploying, we hope, 6,000 National Guardsmen and one sealing their southern border. If they seal that, that's a game changer for all those people coming up from South America. And they also have frozen 27 or 29 bank accounts of people that are financing this. And some of those people are in the United States. So, and I understand they may be going to disclose who these bank accounts belong to.
Really?
That could be big.
That would be huge, wasn't it?
Yes.
And we see who is absolutely undermining and causing chaos. Now, the second thing that they said they were going to do was they're going to interrupt the human trafficking and the routes of the traffickers. Now, when I think that they start doing that, the biggest concern I have is that it is then going to get bloody. The cartel is not going to go quietly into that good night.
Yeah.
They are going to fight that tooth and nail. And right now, we know from McAllen to El Paso that the Mexican side of the Rio Grande is owned by the cartel. And you're paying to get across. But, the droves of people that are coming across, this could be a game changer. But I think it's going to be a tough game changer for the Mexican government. I think they've got an uphill battle.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, the cartels have notoriously had corrupt officials in the government. So to pull this off, what you're talking about, sounds like it would require a top-down kind of ready to defend their their sovereignty from the cartels in a way if they want to actually enforce these policies.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And if they've frozen these bank accounts this soon, they already knew who was doing that.
Oh, I actually have a good question for you. So if this did happen and they essentially had to go to war with the cartels, is that something, because technically it involves our national security as well, is that something that the U.S. military should think about getting involved in with Mexico, or is that kind of like a fight we don't
that's a great question. I've been so far removed from operations for 3 years already, so it's really hard for me to kind of give it a direct answer. But will they get involved? I'm not sure. I mean, at least at a tier 1 probably level or a special operations level, there will be stuff over the border. But due to our rules, we can't really operate on the border, at least from what I remember. But yeah, if it happens, it'll probably most likely be soft units on the other side.
Outside of the full deployment to Mexico and stuff like that.
At the request of the government.
Yep.
Yeah.
How did you feel about when Trump initially said, we're going after Mexico with the tariffs, to combat illegal immigration, this is how we're going to go about it? Because I know with China, it was very easy to see, okay, we're talking about a trade deficit and then we're talking about tariffs, which factors into that. When you're talking about illegal immigration, it feels a little bit different. So when he first announced the tariffs on Mexico, I cringed a little bit. I went, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. And then 24 hours later, I said, okay, he is a negotiator and it sounds like I'm wrong. And he knew what he was doing all along. What was your first thoughts?
Well, I tell you what, I cringed too. I thought, uh-oh, here we go. But I will tell you that I come to find out about Donald Trump. If like him, dislike him, he's the only one providing leadership, and he's reaching for every arrow in his quiver to stop this onslaught of people coming into our country. Congress isn't doing anything. Both sides of the aisle, those guys ought to be filing bills every day, Republican, Democrat, I don't care. Go to work, don't come home on the weekends. Let's get this resolved. You got to come home on the weekends when you were deployed, right? I mean, it's just Thursday evening, flew home.
I was about to say yes for a second. The rest of your question.
And when we're in the middle of crisis, you stay in the fight, and Congress is not staying in the fight. The president's pulling out every quiver. So when this happened, my initial thoughts was a little bit of cringe, and I thought, but you know what? We got to do something. And then boom, there was, Mexico started stepping up to the plate, and I'm optimistically, cynically excited, if that makes any sense.
I love it. Remi, really quickly before we move on to Rikers, I have a friend who her nephew is in the military and he is now stationed at the border.
Okay.
And he calls his family and he says, guys, I'm so frustrated because we can't do anything.
That's right.
They tell us we cannot do anything. All we do is pick up the phone and call Border Patrol, and we're sitting here stationed away from our families, watching hundreds of people cross the border in the night, and we can't do anything. Why are we here?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. A few weeks, about 2 months ago, a buddy of mine, he's a Border Patrol guy. And I said to him, I said, hey, man, I really want to understand this. You know, I know that there are two different perspectives, and, you know, I want to understand what's going on. So he took me on a ride along up, you know, throughout the San Diego border from Imperial Beach down towards past Chula Vista and East Lake area. And I didn't see any troops there. But he, you know, he said that the way the laws are set up, the troops can't do anything. They're pretty much defenseless. They're just a presence. It's just more of a presence. But it is the Border Patrol guys who are the only ones who are allowed to, you know, touch or search or do any of that type of work. So, yeah, I'm not sure how I would feel if I was in that situation, if I was a troop and sitting on the border and just sitting there for the sake of sitting there, being away from my family. But
absolutely,
yeah.
Just listening post there. And by the way, our Rangers, our Texas Rangers, we're patrolling the river. We're in river boats with high armament, and those guys are getting into gunfights on the other side of the border. That is happening. And the guys in McAllen have told me that they see firefights every night across the border.
I always wonder how that can be a reality in the claim is that there's no crisis, that there's never, like, that it's only women and children ever at the border. Like, I don't even know how it's allowed, and the media does a lot of this too. Like, when they talk about it, it's always focused on, which is a tragedy. Like, nobody wants women and children going through the border and almost sometimes dying. But how is this not part of the conversation constantly of keeping our law enforcement safe? Because to me, I feel like they're getting the shaft.
They are.
With this, because we're not thinking about them, their families, their women and children that they have at home, right?
Absolutely. People who do not think it's a crisis have their head in the sand. They need to go to the border. These politicians that are running for office that says there's no crisis down there, my dare to them is leave your security and your entourage on this side. Have dinner across the border in Juarez, or have dinner across the border in McAllen, and spend the night there. And then let's talk about it in the morning, because they are entering a third world country that is in war, that is at war.
Beto will go to El Paso for a nice fundraiser, but that's about all I've seen.
And then claim that we have no issue at the border.
It's the safest ever because I'm surrounded by Secret Service or his security and whatever.
Right. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and I want to get back to Rikers Island when we come back.
Do you do a lot of that stuff?
what's that?
All right, Remi, we have a couple minutes here before we head to overtime. So tell us what you're doing over at Rikers.
Yeah, so I'm going to be speaking at Rikers Island Jail for the inmates who are going to be graduating from high school. It's interesting the way they found out about me. My book Transformed came out a month ago. It's called Transformed: A Navy SEAL's Unlikely Journey from the Throne of Africa to the Streets of the Bronx to Defying All Odds, and it really chronicles my journey, but also focuses on my time in the Bronx, being an at-risk youth, being in the public education system in the Bronx, which was horrible at the time, and how that street life and street culture and the lack of good education in my area led me down some pretty dark paths. And so a few of the leadership at Rikers Island read my book, and they were just like, wow, this guy's story can be a story that can resonate with these guys, essentially give hope to them that, even though they do have a record, they can still be somebody because they're getting their education and they're moving forward. So I'm going to be giving the commencement address to all the students, and some of these guys range from the age of 18 to 27. Essentially, I want to give these guys hope. I want them to realize that, it's not over. Yes, you make mistakes, but though people make mistakes, that doesn't mean that they don't have potential. And so I'm excited about it, and hopefully it could turn into something where I can get into some more jails, and we could also see about getting more resources. And one of the things that the principal committed to doing is getting my book for the school, in mass for the schools so that they can have for next year's curriculum.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to talk a little bit more about this in overtime. I know that we've got a break coming up. So if you have not joined Blaze TV yet, what are you waiting for? You can go to blazetv.com, use promo code NEWS, and you can get $10 off your annual subscription. Overtime starts next. We'll see you there.
Yeah.